Hello everyone, and welcome to the Synology Product Online Training. We have an awesome topic for everyone here today, going over our Backup Solutions Guide. Quick introduction, my name's Cody. I'm a product manager here at Synology, and I'll be your guide for this one this time around. Now on the agenda today, we're going to begin by taking a look at our backup objectives. These are the goals that you have in utilizing a backup system. And then we're going to take a look at the Synology solutions you'll have at your disposal to meet those goals by utilizing DSM, the operating system on your Synology NAS. And lastly, we're going to diagram all this out and show how you can weave different backup programs together to complete a 3-2-1 backup strategy to meet your organization's needs. Moving on into section 1, taking a look at our backup objectives, our goals before laying out our backup solution. Now, in terms of your backup considerations, you first want to begin by taking a look at what you want to back up. You need to assess what needs protecting first, and you need to choose where you want to store that backup data. Once all of that is in place, then you can begin to decide on your recovery objectives for the different things you're trying to protect, because different elements like a workstation versus something like a file server may have different recovery requirements for your organization. The nature of the elements that you're looking to protect can be somewhat wide-ranging in your environment. It could be everyday items such as workstations, Mac devices, PCs that you interact with every day, all the way up to major software as a service platforms like Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace. You may also want to protect some on-premise server devices that may be a critical piece of your IT infrastructure, or even VMs that might be in a hypervisor that might be hosting applications, for example, for your business. And if you have a Synology NAS, it is likely an integral piece of your IT infrastructure. So any contents on your Synology NAS, you may want to back up to another cloud provider or even another Synology NAS or another storage area network if you have that available to you. Now, once you have chosen what you need to back up to meet your organization's needs for protection, then you want to make sure you choose where you actually want to store all of this data. You can choose to have this on-premise, that gives you the fastest recovery times and full control of your data, or you could choose to do something off-site, which would allow you to have low upfront cost and on-demand scalability if you chose a third-party cloud provider. Now, Synology's best advice in this case would be to use a 3-2-1 backup strategy with a mixture of both on-premise and off-site elements, like we'll discuss in later sections. So we've taken a look at what we want to back up and where we want to place that data. Now we can begin to lock in what our recovery objectives are for that protected data. One of the main considerations you're going to want to take into account is the overall uptime that you're supposed to be providing to your clients for various services. So you want to consider the restoration times that you have from your destinations. This is why having a mixture of both on-premise and off-site solutions is a good option. Off-site gives you low upfront cost and on-demand scalability, but you're bound in terms of restoration times to your WAN connection. If you have some on-premise backup solutions, you may have much higher network bandwidth available from your backup server to that restoration point. Now, another thing you'll want to consider is actually where you actually want to recover to and how you actually want to recover. Now, you may want to have either a full image-based restore or get a little bit more granular and be able to pull individual files and folders out of that backup. Lastly, you'll want to take into account any user tools you want to have into place. So many organizations may want to have their users do self-service recovery, and then another group of organizations may not and may want the admin to do that exclusively. So you'll want to take that into account while you're configuring your backups so you can have those tools in place for your users or not, depending on your organization's policy. Moving on into section 2 on Synology Backup Solutions. Now, whenever you're setting up your backup system on your Synology NAS, you're going to be first going to Package Center. This is going to be where you can actually customize your Synology NAS and add different applications in to meet your organization's needs. And the same goes for all the backup applications. They're also available in Package Center. Now, Package Center contains backup tools for a wide range of devices, all the ones we listed previously. So there's backup tools for your endpoints, your workstations, your servers, your virtual machines. There's backup tools for your NAS to back up content that's already on your NAS to another cloud provider. And there's also backup tools to take care of software as a service platforms like Microsoft 365, Google Workspace. You can create backups for those, or you could do a direct sync with other cloud providers like Box, Google Drive, etc. Now, on the topic of backing up your endpoint devices, you're going to have multiple different combinations that you can utilize for backing up things like your physical servers, your virtual machines, and your workstations. In terms of your physical servers, you're going to be able to install your Active Backup agent or your C2 backup agent directly on those operating systems, and those agents will actually control those backups for that system. Now, for your virtual machines, what you're going to do is you're going to take Active Backup for Business, that instance on your Synology NAS, and you're going to point it directly at your Hyper-V or VMware clusters to back up VMs through that. It is an agentless backup if you're going to use Active Backup for Business for your virtual machines. Now for your workstations, you have the most options in this category. You're going to be able to install your Active Backup for Business agent, kind of like with the physical servers, or you can use Synology Drive for file level sync-based backups, or C2 Backup, which is again another agent you can install directly on your workstations. So you're going to use a mixture of Active Backup for Business, C2 Backup, and Synology Drive to meet your organization's needs in regards to backing up your endpoint devices. Now on the topic of Active Backup for Business, this is the application you're going to want to utilize to back up your endpoint devices to your on-premise Synology NAS. This will back up your endpoint PCs, your Mac devices, your physical servers, your virtual machines in Hyper-V, VMware, and it will provide compressed, deduplicated, bare metal imaging of those devices. And you can take AES 256-bit encryption and encrypt those backup tasks at rest. There's also flexible retention policies for Active Backup for Business and high levels of frequency control for your backup policy. You can back up every hour, daily, even weekly if you wanted to. And all of this backs up directly to your Synology NAS. Again, you'll want to use this backup system to back up your data to your on-premise Synology NAS. And then you can layer other backup systems like Snapshot or Hyper Backup to transfer backups offsite, and even spin up server VMs, for example, in a hypervisor for max uptime using features like Instant Restore. Now, C2 Backup is a little different from Active Backup for Business, but in spirit, it serves a similar function. In terms of C2 Backup, it's going to allow you to back up your physical PCs and servers with that same AES 256-bit military-grade encryption and deduplication features. You can do your backups up to every day with C2 Backup, and what's important about the C2 Backup solution is you're backing up directly to Synology's C2 Backup Cloud, which means that you do not need a Synology NAS to run C2 Backup. In fact, you can run Active Backup for Business and C2 Backup for your different sets of users simultaneously if you want to. And you could have your on-the-go users use C2 Backup, while your on-prem users use Active Backup for Business, for example. Just like with Active Backup for Business, C2 Backup also is a bare metal image that can be fully restored back to the actual hardware it was backed up from. And you can also do a web portal recovery method similar to Active Backup for Business's recovery portal as well. Lastly, we also have Synology Drive. With Synology Drive, as you may have seen in our previous webinars, it is a powerful sync tool, but it also has some backup tasks available inside of it. And what this will allow you to back up is essentially your workstations that you have the Synology Drive client installed on. It is a file-based backup that runs off the sync platform that Synology Drive is built on and allows you to do things like file filter types and sizes as well, just like your normal sync policies. Now, since this is a file-based, sync-based backup, Synology Drive's frequency in this case is going to be continuous. So as you make changes to your data in your Synology Drive folders that are being backed up, those will be synced immediately up to your Synology NAS. Again, the only limitation there is going to be your connection speed to potentially your remote Synology NAS. And once again, this will actually back up to your Synology NAS. There's a restoration portal integrated into the desktop app. Now, in terms of backing up your software as a service platforms, if you're using Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, there are active backup modules for each of those services if you need to back up elements within those. And if you have other cloud providers you're utilizing, such as Box, Dropbox, etc., you could utilize Cloud Sync to get data down from your cloud onto your Synology NAS, and then you could layer other systems on top of that to provide versioning, additional replication offsite of that data, and then even using Hyper Backup to push it to yet another cloud provider if you wanted to do something along those lines. Now, in regards to Active Backup for Google Workspace, the main thing that this is going to take care of is the Google Workspace data that you have inside of that platform. So data that you have in Drive, Gmail, Contacts, Calendar can all be backed up with compression and deduplication, as well as encryption in transit. Now, with Active Backup for Google Workspace, this is going to be a continuous backup option. You can choose to schedule this if you would like to, and the backup destination in this case is going to be backing up directly to your Synology NAS to provide potentially greater retention than you may have set inside of your policies for Google Workspace. Now, likewise, Active Backup for Microsoft 365 takes care of the Microsoft 365 data that you have in that platform. Now, for the Microsoft 365 environment, you're going to be able to take care of your mail, your OneDrive, your SharePoint, your contacts, your calendar, and some different Teams elements, along with compression and deduplication and encryption in transit. Just like with the Google Workspace backups, the Microsoft 365 backups with Active Backup for Microsoft 365 allows you to do continuous backups. So as data is changed up into your cloud, that can also be backed up whenever the NAS checks for any changes periodically. And just like with Active Backup for Google Workspace, the backup destination in this case is to the Synology NAS that you have on premise, allowing you to have potentially deeper retention than you have set inside of Microsoft 365 itself. Now lastly, if you are using a separate cloud provider aside from Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, and you would like to synchronize that data with your Synology NAS, you would utilize Cloud Sync. It's compatible with many leading cloud storage providers. It has a very similar continuous sync method, and if you did want to actually back up using Cloud Sync, it's important to note that Cloud Sync itself does not have versioning built in. However, Synology provides multiple other software applications that do allow you to layer versioning on top of that Cloud Sync data. For example, you could use Hyper Backup to send that data off the Synology NAS once more, or use snapshots to replicate that data to another Synology NAS if you needed to. So now that we've talked about backing up your endpoints to your Synology NAS and your software as a service platforms you might be utilizing with a range of our tools, you're going to want to consider how you can create a 3-2-1 backup strategy for that data that is now on that Synology NAS. So you're going to want to use a combination of Hyper Backup and snapshot replication to provide a more robust solution to your backup strategy. So with Hyper Backup, this is going to be what allows you to back up your data off your Synology NAS, including settings for the Synology NAS, to another cloud provider. That could be a third-party cloud provider, that could be Synology's C2 cloud service that you can also utilize. Snapshot replication allows you to replicate your data in your shared folders or LUNs to another Synology NAS. This can include your Active Backup for Business data, allowing you to have more granular replication up to every 5 minutes, so you can have that much more recovery points at your disposal whenever you actually do need to do a failover and recovery. Now, high availability here is a bit of an honorable mention. It's not a backup system itself, but you can consider creating a duplicate Synology NAS, tying the two Synology NAS together with a physical heartbeat connection so that they present each other as a single namespace. So whenever there's a hardware failure of one of those nodes, you can have that other system in place to actually step in and take over all of those services to help you reduce overall downtime if there's ever a system failure. Now, as mentioned, Hyper Backup is going to be what allows you to back up data back off your Synology NAS for additional copies. So it's going to allow you to back up your NAS data and settings that might be residing on that on-premise device. It gives you a compressed, deduplicated, as well as zipped up .hbk file that you can use to easily transport your backup image to other locations. Now, this backup file can also be encrypted with client-side encryption, and of course, if you're sending it to a public cloud, for example, it is also encrypted in transit. Now, the frequency for Hyper Backup is up to every hour with up to 65,000 versions available for retention, and you can choose to back up to another NAS, to a third-party cloud provider, Synology's C2 service, a USB, or another server with a compatible protocol. Now, the snapshots for local and both replication snapshots allows you to back up your Synology NAS data and also iSCSI LUNs if they are thin provisioned. It creates a read-only snapshot, and it's the best protection you have against ransomware, especially with the new immutable features that are available in the latest updates for snapshot replication. If you'd like more information on the immutable features in snapshot replication, please go ahead and check out our previous spot webinar that we did on the subject. Now, snapshot replication is more granular than Hyper Backup and other backup platforms, allowing you to back up as often as every 5 minutes and replicate that data off-site. So what you're able to do with snapshot and replication in this case is replicate to that secondary NAS off-site. That secondary NAS contains that read-only snapshot, and you're able to fail over to that secondary snapshot should anything happen to your primary site. Now, with Synology High Availability, again, this is a bonus feature. It's like just an added honorable mention in this case. It's not technically a backup software in this case. However, it does provide system-level redundancy. You can take two Synology NAS that are identical and link them together with a heartbeat. They are going to continuously sync with each other, so if anything happens to one node, the other node can step in and provide services. So this is an excellent solution for critical applications. It's a good layer to have in place alongside a robust 3-2-1 backup strategy. So in summary, we went over several different packages that are at your disposal to meet multiple different needs of endpoint protection, software as a service protection, 3-2-1 backup solutions, as well as the ability to have system level redundancy. So here is a table of how all these different systems compare to each other. Now, with those on-premise solutions for your backups in mind, also remember that we do have Synology C2, which is an off-premise Synology cloud for business applications. And with Synology C2, there are several different services available in that system to meet various needs, from C2 transfer, C2 password, C2 identity, etc. But the main two you're going to utilize for your backup needs are C2 backup for business as well as C2 storage. C2 Storage is your destination for hyper backup tasks for backing up data off your Synology NAS to the Synology C2 Cloud. C2 Backup is there if you don't have an on-premise NAS and would like a lot of the same features as Active Backup for Business, but want to back up your endpoints directly to the cloud. Moving on into section 3, we're going to tie this all together and diagram all these different backup solutions out so you can see how you can weave them together to meet your organization's needs. So in diagramming out all of our different backup solutions, we're going to start off with a scenario such as this. We have an HQ NAS device that's going to be the main controller for a lot of different branch offices. And there's, of course, workstations, servers, and VMs at HQ that interact with that central Synology NAS in this case. So to back up those workstations, servers, and VMs, you're going to use Active Backup for Business, either an agent or directly integrating Active Backup with the hypervisor to back up data from those endpoints directly to your Synology NAS. Now let's say the organization is growing and we have a new branch office that is also going to have a Synology NAS, and we need that NAS to stay in lockstep with the HQ centralized file server. So to do so, we're going to use Synology Drive's ShareSync application to keep data between HQ and Branch A in lockstep. Now, workstations at Branch A are also going to be able to integrate with Branch A through Synology Drive or local mapped drives if they're on the same network. By interacting through the Synology Drive client, users can interact with the NAS as a file server and create sync tasks to it, or as we discussed previously, they can create file-level backup tasks through that same Synology Drive client. Go ahead and check out our Synology product online training on this very subject. Now let's say you're also using Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace or maybe some other public cloud provider like Dropbox, Box, etc. Now with Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace, you'll utilize the Active Backup module corresponding to that specific service to back up data from that cloud directly to your HQ NAS. For your other cloud services that you may want to actually sync data with, you could use the Cloud Sync application between that public cloud and your HQ NAS, and then from there, that data can be backed up multiple more times or synced elsewhere to multiple other branches if needed. What's interesting about the Synology Drive environment is it's so flexible that they can have the workstations connect to Branch A, Branch B, or directly with HQ, depending on what would give the best performance for this scenario. So this workstation, if it's on the go, what have you, they could sync potentially directly with HQ to get their data in hand if they needed to. As this company continues to grow, they may add something like Branch B and additional workstations out in the field. Now, those workstations that may be remote, they once again can also sync with HQ either directly or through one of the other branch Synology NAS utilizing the Synology Drive environment. It's flexible enough to be able to be modified to meet your organization's needs or a specific worker's needs if they have better regional performance with one node or one server or the HQ location in this case. Now, Branch B, we could have this be our backup destination for Branch A, HQ, all of that cloud backup data that we aggregated at HQ. So for Branch B, we could have the HQ device replicate that sensitive data to Branch B for failover purposes in case anything happened at that HQ location. Now, lastly, let's say you have all of these different backup solutions in place, but you also want to have an additional copy completely offsite in a cloud provider. You do have the Synology C2 Cloud solution as an option. You can back up all your data from various endpoints, your branch offices, your direct Synology NAS directly to C2 Cloud, utilizing Synology C2 Backup or Synology C2 Storage. C2 Backup, once again, would be for your physical endpoints, your PCs, your servers, whereas C2 Storage will be backing up the data that may reside on that HQ Synology NAS or data that might be on Branch A or Branch B Synology NASs in this case. So we went over quite a bit today. Let's go ahead and recap and go over some next steps. So to recap the tools at your disposal, for your endpoints, you have Active Backup for Business and Synology Drive if you have an on-premise Synology NAS. That'll take care of image-based backups for your PCs, servers, and virtual machines for Active Backup for Business, and file-level granularity for your endpoints with Synology Drive. There's also an option for C2 Backup if you don't have an on-premise Synology NAS and you want a lot of the same features that Active Backup for Business would give you. You can utilize Synology's C2 Backup to back up your endpoints directly to that cloud service. For your software as a service platforms, you have the ability to use Active Backup for Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace modules, and if there's other cloud service providers you utilize like Box or Dropbox, for example, you can utilize Cloud Sync to get that data down to the Synology NAS. Now, once all of that data is residing upon your Synology NAS, you want to layer additional backup copies into multiple destinations. And to do so, you're going to use a combination of Hyper Backup and Snapshot Replication. Hyper Backup allows you to back up to a third-party cloud provider. That could be Azure, Google, AWS, etc. Or you can back up to Synology's C2 storage if that is a solution you would like to utilize. And for Snapshot Replication, that would allow you to replicate your active backup for business data or any other file server data, for example, to a secondary Synology NAS that you could fail over to in case anything happens to the primary site. Another honorable mention is Synology's high availability, allowing you to add in 2 identical units and physically connect them with a heartbeat connection. These 2 units will act as one, and if one goes down, the other one can stand in and provide services. So you want to utilize Synology's high availability along with these 3-to-1 backup strategies to provide those critical services and give you the most uptime possible in your Synology ecosystem. Now, if you need help past what this webinar provided, go ahead and check out our Synology product online training page. We have hours and hours of video content there going over a range of topics. If you need help past what those webinars provide, go ahead and check out our Synology knowledge base. We have step-by-step guides on a ton of different topics there. And lastly, if those resources don't provide the help you need, go ahead and send us an inquiry, and our highly trained inquiry team can get your questions answered. Now, if you're a business user with your own internal IT team, go ahead and reach out to onboarding@synologyamerica.com, and we'll connect you with some resources here internally. And if you're a channel partner, reseller, etc., go ahead and reach out to sac_sales@synology.com, and we can get you connected with your account manager. And lastly, for our friends across the pond, if you have a UK team or UK clients, go ahead and reach out to uk_sales@synology.com, and we'll get you connected with resources there too. And once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.